highs to the University of Texas to Chicago University. Every one of them said if the government doesn't act, this market cratering will not correct itself on its own. So, stimulus package passed. Again, people begin, and I'm glad they are, beginning to talk about the debt of the nation. Because again, if one looks back at this decade, what really happened, the second worst thing that happened in 2001 happened in February that year, when the Congressional Budget Office forecast there'd be a $5 trillion surplus over the next 10 years. And I'm sitting, people became before it. They were filthy rich. I remember Secretary O'Neill, the first Secretary of Treasury, came before the Ways and Means Committee and actually said that he was concerned about us paying off the national debt so fast, so quickly, that we would have to pay a premium to redeem some of our paper. This was in 2001, in the spring of 2001. Well, some of us said, well, wait a minute. We're just barely breaking even here. In the year 2000, revenue and expenditure as a percentage of GDP were both around 19%. You look at the U.S. Treasury website. By 2000, but we were breaking even, basically, had a little surplus sometimes. So 2001 February, this forecast, I remember saying, this is just a forecast. It's impossible for any human being to say what the economy of the United States is going to do over the next 10 years. I don't know what the price of cotton is going to be in 10 days. How in the world can you base what you're doing on what's going to happen in the next 10 years? I said, you know, it's supposed to be 75 and sunny today. You wake up and it's 40 and raining. We don't put on flip-flops and shorts, but because it's supposed to be 75 and sunny. But anyway, in June of that year, we embarked on a new economic program for this country. You know what happened? 9/11. We never went back and revisited the economic game plan that was enacted in June. By the year 2003, the revenue stream coming to Washington was 16.3% of GDP, and expenditures was 20%. We'd gone to war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we began then to borrow the difference between 16% of GDP and over 20%. All of that led up to what happened, as I said, last fall, the stimulus package, then you've got the cap and trade that you mentioned, and now you come along with health care reform. And this level of anxiety that I see going around talking to people, I think is a combination of all of that, because we are just uneasy with the future. We're uneasy with the present. We're in a recession. Unemployment is high. We are fighting two seemingly endless wars against a nameless, faceless enemy. There's nobody to surrender to us. It is a philosophy. It is a psychological war where they have twisted their form of religion to the point where they think, some of them, that it's a good thing and they'll be rewarded in their hereafter they kill a 5-year-old child. That's completely foreign to any impulse we have as human beings. And yet that's what we're fighting with seemingly no end in sight. And so you put all of that together, and it's no wonder that you have an emotional reaction to the health care proposals. I'll talk about that in just a minute, because of the uncertainty. My grandfather told me one time, out on the farm, he said, uncertainty, son, is one of the hardest human emotions to get your arms around. He said, if I tell you to go down to the barn and shovel horse manure, although he didn't say manure, for 2 hours, you can handle that. You know it's going to be over. You go down there and say, you shoveled, I tell you to quit, it'll drive you crazy. Because you don't know when that is. Well, it's today, tomorrow, next day, anything. And so all of this comes together, and I think we've lost sight of the fact that we've got an American problem that's both humane and economic. I met with the NFIB folks, I met with the Chamber folks in Washington, here in Tennessee, and the health insurance premiums that we're all paying are exploding. And small small businesses are finding, all businesses are finding it harder and harder to provide the kind of health insurance they want for their employees with ever increasing health insurance premiums. So one of the goals of any kind of reform that might come down the pipe has to be cost containment and fixing what's broken in the system, where there's duplication, where there's waste, and we all know it's there, so that we can lower health insurance premiums for everybody that's paying. The other point of that is that we are delivering health care to people who have no health insurance in the most expensive, inefficient way imaginable, that's through the emergency room. So as we try to talk about this and see what we can do, it's no wonder that in Washington you have this morning to understand that the left is going nuts, the right's going nuts, and those of us in the middle are trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what we can do incrementally to make things better, take that first step toward relieving some of the pressure on businesses that impacts their ability to compete. In small firms, that's competing here with the large multinationals, it is impacting severely. When we talk to Business Roundtable, which I did last month in Washington, our ability as American multinationals to compete overseas. You put all of that together, and we need to have a serious discussion. Now, where are we right now? There is a base bill in the House that has been amended by 3 different committees. There is no House bill yet to vote on because those 3 committee amendments have not been all put together in one bill. The Senate, which has to pass the bill as well, has 2 committees of jurisdiction, one of which is reported and one of which is not reported in the Senate Finance. And one of the frustrating things for me is when people ask me, well, what about the bill? And you have to say, I don't know, because I don't know what the Senate's going to do. I don't know what the parameters of the discussion may or may not be. And so this is the first step of a process. There's 2 things about this that are good. One is that people are more and more conscious of the debt. That's good. We've been talking about it. That's why the Blue Dog was formed, and that's a good thing. The second thing is that we need to address health care, in my view, about trying to fix what's wrong with it. Electronic record keeping cuts down on medical errors, as well as duplication is a good thing. Standardizing insurance forms is another good thing we have. Something about health insurance reform that will take care of people with pre-existing illness that will let them have affordable health care. There are a lot of things that can be done without adversely affecting patient care in this country, and that's what I think ought to be tried before we do anything else, before we load anything else on the system that's not operating as efficiently as I think it can. And so, at the end of the day, let's don't get so worked up that we can't sit there and talk about an American problem and try to fashion an American solution. Not a European style, or not what the things that don't work very well now we can fix. But we need to do this, and we need to do it together. And I think as we go through September, October, we're so far away from a vote on a bill that will go to the president that this is like the first step. I'm going to walk back to Union City this afternoon, and I'm out here at the Wendy's or somewhere, McDonald's, I don't know, whatever, hamburger. It's a long process. So if we can do this, I think we can get it right, because I still believe what Winston Churchill once said. He said, the Americans will eventually get it right, but only after exhausting every other conceivable possibility. I'd be glad to try to